The now departed solar storm, spectacular views, and considering how powerful it was, we got off pretty easily. I'm meteorologist Don Paul. Welcome to my podcast, Bits o' Blather on weather, climate, and this time around, space weather, as well as some terrestrial weather. This solar storm was, by all measures, the most powerful since October of 2003. It was a G5 at least several intervals. That is the maximum severity. It's considered G5 extreme. And G5 extreme can, if it persists, produce significant impacts on the power grid. Satellite orbits can cause decay in satellite orbits, can pose a radiation threat to the astronauts in the ISS, and cause problems with the internet. And there were some impacts along those lines, but they were relatively minor and paled before the G5 storm of October 2003, which put a huge hit on the Quebec power grid, causing a massive blackout in that Canadian province. Could have happened this time around. It didn't. There were some spotty impacts at high latitudes, but we did, as I said, get off fairly easily, and we did have spectacular views. Although, if it makes anyone feel better or worse, at my house, there was a cluster of cirrocumulus clouds so that we hardly saw a thing. Saw some glow through a few narrow breaks in the overcast over our house. So for those of you who missed it, you weren't alone, although it appears from the swath of spectacular images, the majority of our population who chose to look and photograph got what they wanted. And you probably have heard by now, this solar storm, this G5 extreme storm, resulted in northern lights being seen as far as Puerto Rico, parts of Mexico, and Key Largo, Florida, as well south into the southwest, where skies were clear in some locations. So that may be a literal once in a lifetime setup. Now, the gigantic cluster of sunspots, uh, which is now rotating as the sun rotates, has on this Tuesday sent out another incredibly powerful X flare, X ray flare. But the focal point of that X flare is not aimed at planet Earth because the sun rotates 24 to 30 days, and that sunspot is now going to be rotating as the sun slowly turns to a point where it cannot aim its flares in our direction for some time to come. And the probabilities are that that cluster of sunspots will not have its potency by the time the sun finishes its rotation. However, in the long term, over the next year or so, most solar physicists, and I am not one of them, I'm not a solar physicist, think we have not quite reached this 11-year solar maximum. So there may be the possibility of additional geomagnetic storms coming back up again during the next year because we're going to have a continued active sunspot period before the sunspot activity begins to fade and we go into a solar minimum over the next 11 years. Now, back to weather here on the ground. If you don't listen carefully, you might get a little depressed about the forecast. For example, on this Tuesday, we did have a few showers and thunderstorms expected, and they were right where they were expected, south and east of the Buffalo metro area. On Wednesday, the return of some scattered and occasional showers, maybe a few rumbles of thunder, will be more likely in the afternoon, but not expecting widespread or anything approaching an all-day rain out of that, just somewhat unsettled. And on a northeast flow, temperatures will not reach today's mid-70s. We'll have to settle for upper 60s to near 70, which is seasonable, maybe a degree or two above average. Thursday looks to be the driest of the next few days with partly to mostly sunny skies. High temperatures upper 60s to near 70. A light northeast flow will keep the Lake Ontario shore area the coolest part of western New York. Some more scattered and occasional showers and maybe a few rumbles of thunder returning for parts of Friday. And Saturday, this weekend again looks speckled, and most of the speckles will be on Saturday. So almost as if this is a repetitive pattern because Sunday, again, looks to be the drier of the 2 weekend days. But Saturday will not be a washout. It's just going to be unsettled, making outdoor plans a little bit dicey. In general, still somewhat unsettled as we get into early next week. And we are looking at the period from May 20th through the 24th next week to give us a higher probability of temperatures running above average for this time of the year, which is normally a mild time of the year. That means milder. And then a tendency for the latter part of the month cooling off a little bit, with some more ups and downs, but no unusual cooling is in sight. So that's the big picture, both on space weather and ground weather. No sign at this point of severe weather in our area. You've all heard how much severe weather and how many tornadoes have occurred in April and May across the plains and parts of the Gulf states. And we'll have to keep an eye on things as we move more toward June. The presence of some of the ingredients for severe weather tends to migrate farther to the north as we get into late spring, but no sign of that right now. I'll try to keep you updated here and on social media. Thanks for listening this far. Please share, please follow.